and welcome to iCatholic. I'm Wendy Grace. Well, as the escalation continues in the Middle East, as does the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, events in recent days may indeed worsen that crisis, where Israel is banning UNRWA from operating in Israeli territory. So what exactly does this mean, and what sort of an impact might this have? Joined with us on iCatholic to discuss this, I have Caoimhe De Barra of Trócaire. So before we go into the impacts, Caoimhe, maybe just start off explaining who are UNRWA, what do they do, and what sort of impact this ban might have.
So UNRWA is the largest humanitarian agency in the occupied Palestinian territories and in all countries where Palestinians who were displaced in 1948 or 1967 now live. UNRWA has 30,000 employees in the Gaza Strip. UNRWA delivers, prior to the war and currently, delivers the vast bulk of social services and humanitarian response to the people of Gaza. UNRWA delivers all of the education in Gaza. UNRWA at the moment is delivering a huge amount, absolutely the backbone of the humanitarian response, including the very basics that keeps people alive, such as food, clean water, shelter, and access to basic health care. If UNRWA is not able to operate in Gaza as is intended by the Israeli authorities, the humanitarian system in Gaza simply will collapse. It requires UNRWA to keep going. There's no alternative to UNRWA. There's no organisation with the scale and the capacity to deliver humanitarian services to the people of Gaza, except for UNRWA.
Yeah, and to put it in context, I mean, people will be aware of the decimation that has hit Gaza, the level of humanitarian aid that's needed, the fact that 90% of its population has been displaced. I think a lot of people, Caoimhe, though, will be thinking, how is it possible that this could happen in the first place? Is there any precedent? Has anything like this ever happened before?
There is absolutely no precedent for this. No country on earth has ever banned a UN agency from operating on its soil. Every member of the UN signs the UN Charter, which requires that member state to promote and protect the work of the UN. So to seek to dismantle, which is in effect what Israel is trying to do, an agency of the UN, is absolutely without parallel. It sends a terrible signal to other countries as to what could be done to the UN. The UN is a body which, while it may have flaws, it is the global body which is deliberately set up to protect civilians at times of conflict and to ensure that the most vulnerable are not left behind. So to dismantle this agency, which is protecting the most vulnerable people in Gaza at the height of a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, is simply beyond belief. It's never been done before. Now, we also have power because we also can pressure Israel and pressure the US through international forums. And I would say also that the European Union is extremely important. The EU is a major trading partner with Israel. Ireland has been championing, along with a small number of other EU states, important things such as agreeing to suspend the EU-Israel trade agreement. That's important. That is something that we do have as European citizens, as European countries, influence over. So I think regardless of the US elections and their outcome, we can continue here in Europe to pressure our own bloc, the EU, to suspend the trade agreement with Israel, which is supposed to be contingent on the respect for human rights within Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. It's
very interesting because I think for people watching that are very concerned about what is happening, it's a case of, well, you actually need to talk to your MEPs to put pressure on them to make sure that some of these things happen. Just finally and briefly wanted to ask you about another item that's quite pertinent here in Ireland at the moment. That's the Occupied Territories Bill. What is this and what impact might it have, Caoimhe?
The Occupied Territories Bill is a piece of legislation that would make it illegal for trade in goods or services to happen between Ireland and the illegally occupied Israeli settlements. So just to say, those are settlements that have been declared illegal under international law by the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice said in a statement in July that all states have an obligation not to support the maintenance of such illegal settlements, including through trade. So this bill, once enacted, and it does look now like it will eventually be enacted, would mean that Ireland would no longer support Israeli settlements through trade. That is very positive. It's another area of action that we as individual citizens here in Ireland can take, which is to ensure that those who come to us looking for votes in the forthcoming Irish general election, are very clear in our position that we do want Ireland to introduce the Occupied Territories Bill and to ban trade with Israeli settlements as soon as possible.
Well, Caoimhe, thank you so much for that update, and thanks for being with us on iCatholic today. Caoimhe De Barra of Trócaire. And of course, Trócaire are doing so much good work in many vulnerable countries around the world, and you can find out more about the work that they do and how you can support it at trócaire.org.